Okay, group preparation. And many students actually forget about this part of preparation, but it's very, very important whether you teach cases my style or Hanno's style. In the group, you come to learn from your fellow students. That's one of the things with case teaching. You learn as much from your fellow students as you learn from the teacher or the material. And you come in there and you bring your experience and your ideas and your solution. And it's very important to respect each other, to have a full discussion and actually do the preparation, because if you don't come prepared to the group discussions, the others won't learn from you. And you will experience, I guarantee it, almost every time, that the idea you had for a solution of the case, which you thought was a really good one, has some errors and flaws in it that you hadn't seen, and somebody, at least one of your other group members, maybe all of them, have some idea about the case which you hadn't thought about. And that's the core of case teaching. Now, for Hanno, the group work is actually the most important part of case teaching. So he has very good ideas on how to structure group work, and we'll hear them now.
Okay. When you think about your case group, you have to think about your case group as a knowledge organization, a mini knowledge organization. And like Espen already said, there are as many case interpretations as there are group members. So if you have 5 or 6 or 7 group members, you have 5 or 6 or 7 interpretations. These interpretations actually is the rich pool from which you need to draw in your case analysis. So you need to actually be very careful with that diversity, because it's the gold of your group. Now, in order to get that mini organization working, there are some structural things you can do, and actually there are 5. Okay, the first thing is you have to have a communication platform, because when you exchange information and interpretations, you need to be able to communicate. So in that sense, you need to have each other contact details, you know where to find each other, you have each other's emails, phone numbers, etc. So make sure that you have contact details. Together with the contact details, you also have to set up your communication arrangements. For example, we're going to meet face-to-face 3 times, or we're going to meet online, but you have to settle that. You don't spend time endlessly on when shall we meet. It has to be set upfront. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, each time when you meet, whether it's face-to-face or online, each time when you meet, you have to have an agenda. You don't have a random discussion, because random discussions, you have the bar, okay, later on, and probably you need it as also. So you have to have an agenda. The agenda can consist of something very simple. We have a first reading, everybody does a first reading. A second reading can be agenda point. A first interpretation can be a third agenda point. Then a tentative understanding where you discuss, you put a time frame on it. So you have to have an agenda with agenda items and a time frame. That's the second point. The third thing is you need to have roles in your mini organization. You don't need to bother about becoming CEOs, etc., etc. But there needs to be somebody who is in charge of the discussion. There needs to be a chairman. There also needs to be a secretary. A secretary here in the sense of a note taker, somebody who actually listens to all these conversations and puts them down on paper or on PowerPoints or whatever. Okay, so you need to have a chairman role, and you need to have a note taker / secretary role. And sometimes when you're really pressed for time, you can also have an expediter. Somebody says, guys, we cannot talk for endlessly, we have to push on. So somebody who monitors the time consumption. Okay, so that's the third thing. Timekeeper. Yeah, well, not like that, but a time. Okay, but that's the third thing. The fourth one here is time management. Like Espen already indicated, you do not start this half an hour before class. That's impossible. So when you start, let's say a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks or longer before that, you have to manage your time. When are we going to meet? Reserve time on the calendar. If we have business trips, when do we actually get all together online and then we continue working online but distributed? So you have to have an idea about your calendar management. This is really important, because most people have jobs on the side, they have families, they have business trips, etc. And still there needs to be knowledge production coming out of that pool. So you need to have a calendar management. That's the fourth thing. The last thing is actually a little bit looking like bureaucracy, but it's necessary. You have to have some basic rules, for example, about who is going to do what. A little bit of a division of labor, but not too much. Because when you divide work up, then everybody says, okay, I did my thing and I walk away. That's not how it works. So you need to have some rules, not about division of labor, but more about, do we all contribute in full? I have more experience with this, so I share my knowledge to start with. But also rules about shirking and free riding. If people always have endless excuses because, business trip, or the boss, or foreign visitors, or the baby, or whatever, I mean, that is up to a point acceptable, but not when it continues. So you need to have some rules about free riding and contribution. And that's the last and fifth thing. So if you have your communication platform, you have an agenda, you have your roles, and you have your calendar management, and you have some basic rules, you actually have the five structural ground elements in there. I would like to repeat two things. The first one is you need to not divide the work up too much. Knowledge work is not car assembly, where everybody does his part. Everybody does everything. Otherwise, there is no learning. There is no sharing of ideas. There is no arriving at a shared interpretation. So don't divide too much. Okay? Keep it integrated. Keep the big picture going. Keep the perspective going. The other thing is, if you do not do those five things, I mean, there are no roles, there's no clear agenda, there is no time management. If you don't do that, the consequence will be that your group will not be working. So you get dysfunctionalities. You might have fights, etc., etc. Prevent that by have those five things clear.
What Hanno is outlaying here is a way of preparing for cases when you're doing it in a modular course where people have work and are not physically together. Of course, if you're in a more traditional course where people meet every day or several times a week, they are physically in the same location, you can relax a lot of those rules because people see each other all the time anyway. But it is a good idea to think structured about group work and sort of focus on the fact that you're there to make each other better and you become better by participating in the group. Now, we finished the group work. Everybody is very well prepared. Now it's time to start looking at how to do this in the classroom.